Okay, so what I'd like to do is start off and talk to you about um, kind of what we've done in the last year, and we've rewritten the coaching curriculum for U6 through U12. And what we did is we looked at everyone's curriculum, AYSO's curriculum, other organizations' curriculum, and we realized that most of the coaching manuals and curriculum were written by soccer people for soccer people, and they weren't really written for our audience. And what we've discovered, not discovered, but we knew this, but our audience, for the most part, are parents that most of them haven't played soccer. Those that did play soccer probably played it when they were very young. And most of the sports that they are accustomed to are sports where you line up and you do drills and you do activities. And if you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's a demonstration of boys lined up while one dribbles through the cones. And we realized our audience really are parents that maybe love sports, but they don't know soccer. So what we asked ourselves is, what do we need to do to create an experience so that the kids actually are learning soccer the way it should be? Because soccer, unlike American sports, is a very fluid game. You're not standing in line doing layups or hitting drills or throwing the baseball back and forth. And that led us to look at kind of our approach to writing the curriculum. So what I want to show you, what we're going to do tonight is I want to run through really three main topics. One is looking at the coaching manuals. It may be redundant for some of you that have been to the section meetings where I've done presentations on the coaching manuals and the coaching curriculum. The next thing I want to just address is the lesson plans. We created lesson plans for both the classroom session and the field session, and look at the presentation itself and how do you get the presentation and how the presentation is put together. The way we design the curriculum is they all work off of the manuals as being the foundation. We really want these to be the tools that parents use to help them go through their season after they've left the class. I think much of our experience has been parents will go to a 2-hour course or a 5-hour course or a longer course. They get the manual, they get a presentation, they see a couple of activities, and then they're left on their own for the next 10 weeks to coach a team. And we really wanted to try to address that by creating a manual that becomes a tool for them after they leave the coaching course. So as we look at the first step that we took was rewriting the coaching manuals. And we rewrote the manuals from U6 through U12. Intermediate and advanced, we are working on those. They will not be released until January 2015. We will be rolling out a new Jamboree manual this coming January. So what we're really looking at is for this fall season, the coaching material and training material for the U6 through U12. So the first thing that I want to point out is the table of contents and the way it's structured. There is a purpose for it. The main thing is identifying the fact that these are parents that are coaches, and it just happens to be soccer, and we want to introduce them to AYSO and who we are. So we start off by introducing them to the organization, and we highlight the fact that we are the world's largest soccer club. We are a single entity, and we want them to feel like they're not just a small club in their community, but they're actually a nationwide organization. And there's some benefits to that. And this coaching material isn't just being used in their community, but it's being used all over the country. After that, we introduce them to the Kid Zone. We introduce the age level that they're going to be teaching. And then we start to address the coaching methodology. We really want them to understand the methodology and philosophy of AYSO's coaching program. And then after that, we want them to understand the age they're working with. After all of that's been communicated to the parents, we then introduce them to soccer. We feel that the age-appropriate training and the quality training and creating the right environment is really going to be the success of the development of the children. So I mentioned we added the Kid Zone. The Kid Zone has been an optional program for regions to use. Um, and it's really to create a safe environment. There's signage and different things to identify the way parents should behave during games. We've made it a standard part of the coaching manual and coaching program. We had U.S. Soccer, which is the governing body of soccer, take a look at our programs, and they loved the Kid Zone, and they think it's one of the key issues or differences between AYSO and other programs. And we felt it's important that we should highlight it with every coach, and it should be part of um, everyone in AYSO should know what Kid Zone is. So we've included that. As we look at the manuals, we've added two boxes throughout the manuals. The first one is called From the Field. And From the Field basically are quotes throughout the manual from famous soccer people, well-educated people in player development, in soccer. Most of them are not AYSO. And this quote, for example, is from Johan Cruyff. And what it's there to do is to remind the parents that the way that they're being taught on how to teach soccer to kids is not just the AYSO way. In fact, it's actually, from a worldwide perspective, it's the best way to teach kids. And it's not just one organization saying player development should come first, but it's actually the best minds in soccer reminding them that what they're learning is, in fact, the right way to do it. The other thing we have is a box called Keep in Mind. And we know many adults don't read cover to cover, and they'll try to skim and just kind of pick up little tidbits. So we offered the Keep in Mind window or boxes throughout the manual to really highlight what we want the parent or the coach to take away. So in this case, the Keep in Mind on this page as it relates to talking to your players is avoid lengthy speeches. Keep instructions for activities as simple and quick as possible. If they don't read anything else on that page, we want them to take that nugget with them. Okay. So the next thing we've done, and there's two things here I want to point out. The first is on the right-hand side, which is the bright graphic. We've really wanted to add graphics throughout the manual that highlight key concepts that we really want parents to understand. So this, we're looking at the key development components for a player. And typically in the soccer world, it's listed as technical, tactical, physical, and psychosocial. And we looked at it, and again, remembering who our audience was, is these are parents that are comfortable working with their kids. They may not be comfortable or have experience working with many kids together. So we wanted them to understand the most important thing before they start working with the kids is the psychosocial aspect of the child for that given age. So in this case, we're looking at a U8. These are some of the criteria or some of the emotional aspects of a child at a U8 level. What are their fears? What motivates them? How do they see themselves? How do they interact with their peers? We think the parents need to understand that first before they start teaching soccer so they can understand the age group. The next part is they need to understand physically what can a child of this age actually do. Not technical skills, but physically at the 7 and 8 year olds, they really want to work hard, and you'll see big improvements in their agility, balance, and endurance over that time frame. Once a parent understands the psychosocial and what the child can do physically, then we can talk to them about soccer, what technically the kids can work on. But we really think it's important that as instructors, we communicate to the parents the importance of the psychosocial part of it. Even if you have a really, really good player that technically is sound, you have to make sure that it's an emotionally safe environment for that child before you start addressing the soccer issues. The next thing we looked at, this is, again, another page from the manual where we're talking about the quality training, and we're looking at a microcycle, the coaching cycle. And we simplified the terms. We created a graphic to demonstrate what the coaching cycle is, and we're hoping that it becomes easier for parents to understand. And really the concept is you observe and evaluate your players, you put together a plan, and you organize a training session you run the training session, then you observe and evaluate again. And it's a simple microcycle of what basically it's a weekly cycle of how you train your kids. And we really want them to be comfortable with the coaching cycle. And it's not a difficult concept to understand, but we found that it was difficult in many cases in our old manual for people to understand. Again, with the graphics in the manual, we found with many of our coaches, they didn't understand the buildup of a training session. So we took, and it was in all of our manuals, but it was all text. So we created boxes and we created images to really hammer home the message that every training session is a thematic training session that starts with a warm-up. It has an activity, a more complicated activity, and it ends with a small-sided match, and then a cool down. So again, this is one of those graphics that we really want driven home to our parents, so that the practices aren't kids running around the field as their warm up, just doing a lap, and then having a passing activity followed by a finishing activity or a heading activity, or there needs to be a theme for that session. And that's a message we really want passed on to our parents. So the other big change that we made is in the previous manuals, if you were coaching U6, you would only get the first attacking and first defending principle. We felt it was important that the parents should have an understanding of what all 5 attacking principles are and all 5 defending principles are, so they get to see a roadmap of what they are, but what they would only be highlighted. So in this case, it's U12, so all of them are highlighted. But if it was a U6 course, only penetration and delay would be highlighted. So the parents would see support with mobility, creativity, cover, compactness, balance, and composure, but they would not be highlighted for U6. We as instructors would let them know, this will come as the kids mature and get older. Then U8, they'll do support, cover, width, and compactness. But for U6, it would just be penetration and delay. We think it's important that our parents understand there actually is a plan for progression for the kids' development starting at U6. The other key changes that we've made is if you look at the second attacking principle and the second defending principle, we've changed that from depth to support and cover. And then for the third defending principle, we've changed it from concentration to compactness. And we did this primarily because we felt they were better words and they are also more in line with the rest of the soccer world. So if I want to introduce a concept to people that you may or may not know about, it's called QR codes. And what QR codes are there, if you look up in this corner where the mouse is, that's a QR code. And you'll see it in magazines, you'll see it on labels. You'll see, they're actually become pretty popular. But what they are is they're a image that a smartphone can scan and then take the user to online content. They for your smartphones and your tablets, you can get a free app, and then you use that app to read these QR codes. This is an example of the iTunes store, and it shows the QR code. They're free, QR code reader, excuse me. And then also the Android apps, there's a free QR code. And the reason that's important is we've actually embedded QR codes throughout the manuals to connect our manuals with online content. So here's an example of one of our technical activities. This is an Instep Kick, and you'll see it's similar images to the old manuals. It has what the errors are, what the corrections are. It has the image of the foot making contact with the ball, and then photographs of a child demonstrating what it should look like. We've then added a QR code. And what would happen is the parent or coach would take their phone and they would scan the QR code with their smartphone, and it would take them to this activity.
One of our U10 players from Gilbert, Arizona, demonstrate the skill of instep kicking. Note some of our technical efforts. Her body is over the ball, her eyes are on the ball. Note her supporting foot next to the ball, pointed in the general direction of her target. Her ankle is locked, back and down, her toes are pointing down. The player should strike the centre of the ball with their laces, or instep, and follow through, moving the legs straight through towards the target.
So we've also included activities as well. And so this is an example of activity. We had them in the old manuals. We've updated them. We've hopefully made them a little bit easier to understand. And so we've added, here's the technique, which is the focus and organization of the activity we're doing. We then have new graphics, the coaching points, and I think it's key for the instructors to focus on the coaching points. I think I've traveled to many courses where the demonstrations, especially on the field, become mostly about how to run an activity versus how to identify opportunities for coaching points. And as you start to do your field sessions, we really want the coaching points focused on. So when an activity is run, it should be set up and then demonstrate opportunities to make corrections relating to the coaching points of the activities. And that really should be the focus of the training activity versus the activity itself. The one other thing we've added is, again, another QR code. And what we've done here is we've created simple animation to hopefully make this graphic, which doesn't explain a whole lot, and there's a lot of reading of text of how it works, we try to bring it to life. So in the case of this activity, you've got the 3 red players here. They need to pass the ball 3 times. After they pass it 3 times, the one player can dribble it into a neutral zone, take it into this zone on the far right, and the red team can shoot on goal. So a parent would then scan the QR code and it would take them to this animation. So you can see that the passing of the ball, when they get the final pass through, the player can then take the ball into the neutral zone and the white team can now attack on goal. So what we want to do is make it easier for the parents to understand how the activity should look. And they can also share it with the kids so that they can have an idea of what they're trying to do. Now, beginning with the U8 manual, we are introducing essentially a season's worth of training plans. And what we've found is many coaches, they've gone to the courses, and when they get onto the field, they don't know what to do. They have activities in their book, but they don't know how to structure a training session. So what we've done is we've created a season's worth of training plans. They cover everything from dribbling to ball control to finishing in the older ages to goalkeeping. So we've got those training plans in there. What we need to emphasize is that every session starts with a technical warm-up. So in this session, in this lesson plan or training plan, it's a U8, passing and receiving. The technical warm-up is a technical warm-up that emphasizes passing and receiving. So the kids do their technical warm-up. They'll do some dynamic stretching as they're doing the warm-up. Once they're done with that, they then progress to an activity that focuses on passing and receiving. And then they then go on to the next activity, which is a more complicated passing and receiving activity. There's more oppositions, starting to feel a little bit more like a game, and then they finish with a small-sided match. We need our parents to understand that a warm-up is not the kids taking the ball and dribbling it around the field, coming back and forming a circle and doing static stretching. A warm-up has got to be a fun activity that keeps the kids engaged, that's related to the focus of the training for that day. Additionally, for the coaches that want to create their own training plans and they have experience, in the back of the manuals we have blank training plans that they can fill out. Looks very similar to this training plan, but it has everything's blank, so they can literally write their training plan out and run their own training session. So as I mentioned, the next topic is lesson plans. In all of our courses, U6 through U12, there are both classroom lesson plans and field session lesson plans. So if you look at this is the U10 field session plan, and it gives you basically what the goals are, the class length, the instructor requirements. And then if you look down at materials, one of the items listed there, if you'll notice, is players. I know it's difficult to get players. We did a coaching course this summer and we had to get players, and it was very difficult. But we feel it's crucial that the training sessions on the field involve players of the appropriate age so that the coaches can observe a coach working and making coaching points, as opposed to coaches out there playing like their kids. So if there's any possibility of getting kids out there, we're asking that the instructors focus on getting players for field sessions. So now we move to the presentations. All the presentations are PowerPoints. This is an example of just a screenshot of the U12 coaching course. And what I want to do is I want to walk you through where you can find the presentations. I'm going to show a little video, just to kind of walks you through how you find it at ayso.org, and then we'll go from there. Let me see. Okay, so what we have here, let me pause it. If I'm circling the little mouse that you'll follow on the video, and I'll walk you through it. So what you'll do is you'll go up to ayso.org, and then on the top bar below the banner, you'll see instructors. Click on instructors. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see coach. Click on coach. And then there's a description of the National Coaching Program. You click on lesson plans. And there are the list of all the presentations. You'll see the U6, U8, U10, and U12. They're all single files. They're zip files. In the zip file is the lesson plan, the PowerPoint presentation, and the exam. You can also see their big files. That's a 69 meg file, 143, 391, and the largest is a 427 meg file. The main reason is all the video and animation are embedded in the PowerPoints. So click on that and it'll download. Depending on your internet speed, it can take anywhere from a few minutes to a little bit longer if you're on dial-up. So just plan accordingly. So once you've downloaded the presentation and you unzip the file, you'll see a bunch of files in the folder. So this is the U10 coaching course. In here you'll see there are lesson plans, there's the exam, and then there's the PowerPoint presentation. For the PowerPoint presentation to work accurately, you'll need to keep this PowerPoint presentation in the folder with all of these files. All of these files are animations and videos that are embedded in your PowerPoint. So let's take a look at the presentation. Here is one other thing that we've added is, in addition to the lesson plan, each of your slides will have speaker notes. So if you know how to adjust your PowerPoint presentation so you can display the presentation on the screen and then you'll have your speaker notes on your computer, this will allow you to actually work off of the PowerPoint presentation, so you don't necessarily have to rely on the text that is in your lesson plan.
Element over winning, as we talked about. Being faithful to it. Being really faithful to it every single day. Are the players, are the kids the most important thing? That's what I worry about. That's what I talk about. That's my only goal, is making the players, and of course the coaches who teach them, all of us better.
But that's Claudio Reyna. When we talk about player development, that video is embedded in the PowerPoint presentation. And what it's emphasizing is that player development's got to be the focus. And we have videos like this embedded throughout, not of speakers, but of different activities throughout the presentation. Again, this is a slide talking about the age-appropriate training. You'll see the same image that you see in the manual. We've built in redundancy. We want these images to really sink into the parents, the importance of psychosocial, physical, and then technical and tactical. So all of the images that you'll see in your PowerPoint presentations actually come from the manuals. And again, it's just redundancy.
One of our U10 players from Gilbert, Arizona, demonstrate the skill of instep kicking. Note some of her technical efforts. Her body is over the ball, her eyes are on the ball. Note her supporting foot next to the ball, pointed in the general direction of her target. Her ankle is locked.
Okay, again, as I said, this is the first slide for the Instep Kicking. It's an embedded video that you would show as the instructor, and it's a video of the child demonstrating the Instep Kick. It's the same video that they will be taken to when they scan the QR code. So again, they see the same image. We've had some questions about why don't, if this is a U6 course or a U8 course, why don't we have a 5-year-old or a 6 or 7-year-old demonstrating? And what we found is it's pretty difficult to find a 6-year-old that demonstrates an instep kick correctly. And we felt that having I think she's 9 years old, is a good in between age. It's not too old and it's not too young. She can actually demonstrate the technique accurately. And the parent coaches get a good idea of what the technique should look like. Um, and we think it's the appropriate demonstration for the activities about this age group. So again, here's another image that addresses the attacking objectives and the defending objectives. This demonstrates to you how we've identified the roadmap for the development of the child. So in this case, we're looking at a presentation for U8, and we identify that at U6, the attacking objective is to score, and the defending objective is to prevent scoring. And then at U8, it's score and maintain possession, and the defending is prevent scoring and regain possession. At U10 and U12, it's all three. And it gets more complicated as they go. So you start bringing in the concepts of, well, it depends on where you are on the field and other issues. But we want the parents to understand that even at U8, there's two things they have to focus on. But as they grow in the coaching world, they'll get to know more. And this is what I mentioned. Again, it's the same image from the manual, but this is from the U8 program. So it identifies the 3 attacking principles, 3 defending principles that are appropriate for U8, and identifies the other 4 that they'll learn as they coach U10 or U12. But this just gives you a representation of what it'll look like in your presentation. It's the same image that comes out of the manual as well. So in part of your presentation, we've embedded some animation similar to the animation for the training activities. But what these animations do is they actually demonstrate concepts. So what I'm going to do is this first video will demonstrate penetration and then delay. So we'll hit play. And so the red team is the team to focus on in both situations. So they're demonstrating the penetration through a pass or a shot. And now the red team will demonstrate delay by slowing down the attack. For those that I know that there are some instructors here that have used the presentations already. We by tomorrow morning we'll have uploaded updated presentations. This slide was a little confusing as far as penetration and delay, and we've kind of changed the order. So tomorrow morning you'll be able to upload the new presentations that flow a little bit better. So again, we are using the same animation here, and this is to explain width and compactness. So from width's perspective, you'll see the animation, the 2 players go wide. So as you're explaining it as an instructor, they'll actually get to see images or the animation of what you're talking about. It's not just a matter of you trying to explain the concept without some visual. And we think this will make it a lot easier for them to understand. Okay. And again, in the presentation, this is another image, bright image we use to focus on the buildup of a training session, and that we need to emphasize we don't want to see kids running laps, standing in lines, or listening to lectures. It's about doing a technical warm-up, having the activities, um, ending with a small-sided game, and then cooling down. And then we'll look at the field sessions. These are the training plans for the field sessions, as we mentioned before. And what we're asking is that when you do your field session, instead of taking the coaches out and demonstrating all the different techniques, or doing some dribbling techniques, some passing techniques, some other different activities, you can do those, but we really want you to help the parents understand the progression of a training plan and of a practice. So take one of the training plans out of the manuals. So this is the U8, and educate them on the library and the resources and the tools they have in the manual. So when they plan their training session, they plan it correctly. They think about what their warm-up's going to be, how that warm-up plays into their first activity, and then their second activity, and in the game. So when you take them out on the field to do your field demonstrations, we're asking that you show them and identify how you can address some of the technique issues. So if you want to talk about dribbling, and it's U8, you're doing your technical warm up, you can make a coaching point, make a correction, and demonstrate the appropriate technique for whatever it is you want to demonstrate. That's where we want to see the techniques demonstrated, is actually when you're showing them how a training session works. And again, you're using kids, so hopefully it really feels like a training session, but you're stopping it and letting them see how you're working with the kids and how you make the coaching points, and really demonstrating what is in the manual, demonstrating that out on a field. So there are some issues. We know that we've actually had several instructors, and I've observed probably 8 courses so far. And one of the biggest challenges you will have is time. I think the U8, it's a lot of material to cover, and it's a very short period of time, especially when you have a field session. Um, we we know that it's a lot of material. We just ask that you follow the training session or follow the lesson plan as best you can. Um, we know that a lot of people have a lot of experience in soccer, and they add stories, and I've actually sat through an instructor that went through all 11 attacking principles and defending principles. There's so much content in these presentations, you really don't have time to do that. And I think the other thing that's important to remember is our audience. Our audience, for the most part, aren't soccer people. They are parents that are volunteering to be coaches on their child's team. We need to make sure that we give them the information they need to accurately or appropriately run a training session and create a good environment for the kids. We can't give them too much information that doesn't apply to their real world needs. So we've asked, so just remember that as you're giving the presentation, that time will be a challenge for you, because there is so much there. Embedded videos, we have had some issues with embedded videos with the Office 2007, 2010, and I believe it's 360, where the videos don't play in the presentation, but they do play outside of the presentation. We've found that in most cases, if you download QuickTime to your PC, the videos will then play in the PowerPoint for Microsoft. We haven't had any issues with the Mac versions. I've also had a gentleman that was doing the presentations in 2003, and in PowerPoint 2003, he actually had to convert them to Windows Movie files for those to play in 2003. But for 2007 and later, you should just be able to download QuickTime and it should work. When ordering manuals, the manuals will take 8 business days to get to you. They have to be purchased through the supply center. by an authorized purchaser, and they will take 8 business days from the day they're ordered to reach you. We don't have any copies at the national office. It's actually a print-on-demand service. So as you plan your courses, just make sure you give yourself enough time to order the manuals. The other thing we've found in talking with instructors, that it's better, at least from the instructors that we've talked with, to actually hand the manuals out before. And the main reason is what you're doing is you are guiding them through a tool that they'll be using after the class ends. And you want them to be able to follow through or follow with you through the manual and be able to take notes, because they'll only remember a small percentage of what they hear in that classroom. But that classroom really is helping them understand the tool that they'll be taking with them for the next 10 weeks. So we're recommending that you hand the manuals out at the beginning of the session so that they can use it throughout. Again, mentioned that please follow the classroom and field lesson plans. The other thing with that is, if there are issues with them, we won't know unless people use them. And we've actually made some changes. Some of the changes that have been made for the release tomorrow were based on some feedback from instructors, some corrections we had to make. But the key thing is if you don't use it and you don't give us feedback, then we can't make it better. And we don't want this coaching program to be stagnant. We want to keep improving it and making it better each year so that it's more valuable to our parents and it makes their jobs easier. And then the last thing is, if you have any comments and suggestions, please shoot me an email at scottg@ayso.org. This concludes the Instructor webinar, and I thank you for your time and good luck with your courses.